Ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Warren Stokes. I'm your host and presenter. We're going to be covering, I hope, some very valuable topics for you all. A couple of organizational points before I dive in here. First of all, the webinar is being recorded. If you've registered for it, you should have access to it automatically, but you can also grab my contact information here from the screen. I'd be happy to help you if you have any follow-up questions. But we're going to be talking about and learning what I call the 7 secrets of Excel. Hopefully we'll demystify a few things. And really one of the topics is just how to get more value. How do you actually do things from the data that you capture in Excel? And it's really just a collection of tips and tricks and techniques for using Microsoft Excel effectively. I've used Excel for over 20 years, and I guess one of the things that I realized was that I've learned a lot of little tricks and techniques in Excel that thinking back, I wish I would have asked somebody how to do it. It's like, what are the what do you want to learn about in Excel, but we're afraid to ask type of deal. So let's just go ahead and get started, and I'm just going to give you a little overview of what we're going to cover, and then spend almost all of the rest of the time in Excel itself showing you some of these fabulous tips and tricks. Hopefully you'll get a lot out of it. So let's talk about what we hope to accomplish or what you can gain out of this webinar today. One of the first things is just understanding key Excel functions, and this is intended to be beginning and intermediate Excel functionality and training here. Very important though is it won't take a lot of time to I hope gain a lot of value here. Speaking of time, one of the things that we can do is I think with some of these techniques save valuable time. Overall, the goal here is to enhance your productivity, but also just how to get more useful results out of Excel. And I say impress your friends because you might want to share some of the new tricks you've learned. And I throw in get a better job because research shows that that's one of the reasons people actually study Excel and try to get better at it. The tips and tricks that we're going to be covering will be do things like how to create drop-down lists and other functions that help you create forms like quote forms or just about any form in Excel. How to format things. We'll go through a number of basic and some a little bit more advanced formulas, linking cells and that sort of thing. Very importantly, especially if you use a CRM program or something like that, how do you deal with duplicates? How do you detect duplicates? How do you dedupe Excel files like contact files and such? There's conditional formatting, which has all sorts of special power. And one of the reasons I decided to do this particular webinar, it's not very intuitive and it's not all that easy to learn these things without a little bit of guidance. There's very useful functions that will cover things just like how do you combine data if first and last name are in separate columns, or address and city and state. You want to kind of merge them together. We'll cover some of the basics and get into the charting function of Excel. I think you'll find it very interesting, and a few tips. Hopefully you'll pick up something that's of value. And one of the things I personally developed on my own is basically a decision-making tool in Excel, using all the tips, so a lot of the tips and tricks that we're going to go through today. The drop-down lists are something that a lot of people are kind of mystified with. I don't know if you know it, but you can create drop-down lists. You basically start with a list of products or just about anything, and pricing and such, and it's easy to create drop-down lists so that it's easy to kind of auto-populate your cells with products or what have you. Those can be converted into nice forms or used in nice forms like quotes or other forms that you might want to create. And I'll also talk a little bit about how to format forms so that they print nicely and things like that. Adding formulas in forms or any Excel sheet is useful for summarizing pricing, adding discounts, and that sort of thing. We're going to talk about how to transpose data. A lot of the basic things, like just taking a series that's horizontal but you want to make it vertical for the sake of your Excel calculations. How to use the paste special function, very powerful little function in Excel. It's used to do, among other things, that's how you will use it to transpose the data from horizontal to vertical. And I'm racing through this part because we'll spend most of our time in the actual Excel demonstration itself. Basics on expanding columns to fit and formatting. Again, there's some just shortcuts and techniques that are available for that. I think you'll find those useful. And then I've used this a lot these days, is detecting and removing duplicates. It's a really valuable function. Duplicate data is kind of always something that's annoying, and we'll be going through how to do that. There's a couple of basic ways, and the conditional formatting function of Excel is really powerful, because research has shown that people can understand colors sometimes more than they can just understand, you know, rows of columns and data. So conditional formatting, and then we're going to be talking about how to create charts and graphs. But you probably all created some of them, but I think I'll be able to share a few techniques that simplify and make your charts and graphs a little bit more powerful. And then we're going to combine a lot of this into the decision-making tool in Excel. And this is fun. This was fun. I just used a lot of these same techniques and things to do something like, maybe you want to you know, try to make a good decision on a new product you're going to launch, or, you know, a decision on career choice. And this is a powerful little tool that I've developed that I think you'll find fun to use. So what we're going to do is we're just going to actually get Excel on screen here, and let's start the program. So I'll start with kind of like the cooking show approach, which is like some of the things we'll actually do with it. Then we'll come back and show you the detail. But like this decision-making tool, is, as I was pointing out, is a powerful way to make decisions on different things. And it could be anything, but you know, the idea is that maybe you have a variety of new products you might want to launch, and you want to be able to rate them and characterize them so that you end up with a ranking score of what's the best one to approach first. And you know, another use of that is taking, say, for example, maybe you're looking at a new career opportunity or something, and you want to be able to just say, I want to, you know, evaluate all these different variables, like, you know, income, or where I'd be most satisfied, or how difficult it is to achieve, and also then be able to organize that into a decision-making tool. It's pretty cool. We'll come back to that. Similarly, well, I'll cover how to build things like forms. And we got to go through some of the basics, and then we'll come back to how these are applied. But for example, here's where we can create drop-down lists in a form, like a quote form or something. How to put some date formulas in there, how to set some other pricing formulas if you're interested in, you know, just kind of how to put the data together. And what that results in is a nice, you know, document that you can print as a PDF or what have you in the way of a form. So let's get started, and I'll be bouncing back and forth between some of my explanatory material here, but let's start with just a basic concept of creating series and creating various types of series in Excel. One of the common series to create is a date series. So the idea here is that you can take start a series like date across the top and some values down below. And one of the things you can do is you can drag either just one row. Watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to highlight with my cursor. By the way, as I do this, I'll use this little zero in function as a way to kind of point where my cursor is to enhance that. But I'm up here on the upper left, and I'm going to show you how to drag to create a series. And it depends on the formatting of the cells as to what kind of series that you might be creating here. So let's just take the date series, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the three that I've started with. And there's a little right-hand lower corner where if I grab it with my cursor and just drag it across, you'll see how it continued the logic of those months and the month and year. And as you see, when it reached January, it realized it was 2021. So again, I'll back up and I'll just do that one more time for you here. What I did is I just highlighted the first 2 or 3 cells that I'm going to start creating the series with. 3 make sure that you get the logic in it. And now notice that these are formatted as date cells, so that's an important thing if you're expanding or creating a series of dates. And I just grab that lower bar and I drag it across as far as I want. Creates a nice series here. Similarly, I could do the same thing with values in here. If you want just a sequential value, you can see how I did that. Another thing you could do with 2 rows of data is watch this. You could just create, you know, 2 rows if you want. And that did the same thing, but it did it for 2 rows at a time. Pretty cool, huh? All right, that's the basics of how to create a series. You can do that on various types of data, dates, numbers, etc., letters. So let's talk a little bit about just some, you know, like you get these columns if you put data into an Excel sheet, and you know, you could manually adjust them, like going like this if you want, but there's an easier way, and you can do them all at once. You can say highlight all of the columns. What I'm doing there is I'm putting my cursor up here on top, and I'm just dragging the columns that I want to format by column width. I select them all, and I just double click on any one of those, and you can see how it'll format them all. So it just basically fit it into the columns. Now that one has that whole, let me just move this out of the way here for a second. Let's go back and I'll say that these are all smushed together kind of, and you see that a lot in Excel because that's how it'll be created a lot of times. And I'm just gonna highlight those columns. I'm gonna double click any one of them, and it perfectly organized them so that they're now fitting those columns nicely. Sweet. All right. And the other thing we're gonna do here is talk about how to use this paste special function. Paste special is a unique concept that gives you tremendous power in terms of what to do when you're copying something and then you're going to paste it. So the idea here is that I can take a series like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I want to make it a vertical series. So what I would do is highlight the first set of those. And let's say you didn't have any of these in here yet. And I'm just going to use a little bit of formatting here. And we're going to say, I want to make those a vertical column instead of a horizontal. So I highlight, I go up to copy, or just right click copy, or any shortcut, Control C also puts it in your clipboard. But I say copy, I put my cursor where I want that series to start on the vertical, and now I go up to this, paste special right here. And to get to paste special, there's a little arrow under the paste, and you choose paste special. All right. That'll bring up a dialog box showing you all the different ways that you might want to use this paste special function. So one of the common things we can do is, like, you just want to preserve values and numbers, not formulas, or just values, things like that. But I'm going to show you the one that not a lot of people know about. Maybe you do, but you select transpose as the paste special, and as if by magic, it transposes it from horizontal into vertical in that line there. So again, well, all I did there was I selected the top line or top row of data that I want to transpose. I select copy. I put my cursor where I'm going to go, right here, where I want that vertical column to start. I select up here on the left, paste special, select transpose, and it transposes the data that way. Could be any sort of data. It could be these dates that I want to create a vertical column of them. I'll do the same thing. Paste special, copy, paste special, transpose. Voila, now I've got that data transposed into a vertical from a horizontal. You can also do the reverse. You can select your vertical and say, I want to transpose this into a horizontal, and you just paste special, transpose, and it creates a horizontal out of a vertical. Pretty cool. It took me a long time to learn that one. I don't know why. Maybe I was just slow on the uptake. So again, we're using some basic functions to create series, make auto expand of your columns so that it's less time consuming, and how to transpose horizontal to vertical or vertical to horizontal. Awesome. So let's move on. Let's go into some conditional formatting. I think this is very useful for people that want to look at data and have it initially just kind of pop out the important things here, values and such. So you notice that some of these are red type and kind of a light red background. Some of them are green. So what that's all about is it's called conditional formatting. And there's different types of rules that you can do. So for example, if I go in here and I'll show you where I'm at. First of all, you have to be in the right ribbon up here. I'm just in the home ribbon, and up here on the middle right is a area called conditional formatting. So once you've highlighted a block of cells, and let's just say I'm gonna start over to kind of give you how that looks without the conditional formatting. I'll use the paste special. Let's just put values and number formats in there. Okay, so here's that. We'll use that little trick to expand them out correctly. And now what I want to do is I want to take any of these cells, I want to take these cells here, and I want to highlight certain cells based on some criteria. I want to highlight the block or the area that I want to add this conditional formatting to. Back up here to the top, conditional formatting. When I hover over highlight cell rules, it's going to give me some options. Some of the basic ones are greater than, less than, between numbers, equal to, and so on. But let's just say I wanted to create a highlight of everything that's greater than, so I click greater than, and I want to put 200,000 in there. That would be like the value. And notice it's already doing it for me. It's highlighted in red everything over $200,000, right? Or in that case, maybe I want to make it green because that's quota or something. So I can take this drop down. If you notice where I'm at right now, right here, and I can say I want to make it green instead of red because that's greater than. Right, so maybe that's everybody that's expected to do $200,000 in sales that quarter. You might want to make it green. So that's a pretty awesome function. Similarly, you might want to do a less than. Again, go up, highlight the cells, conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, and let's do less than. And let's do less than 200,000. And let's make that one, let's do that one as red, light red with dark red text, okay? And now we would be able to see those highlighted in red if they're less than that value that you're putting in. Conditional formatting, greater than, less than, select your value. We'll do that one again. We'll change, adjust your color, and there you go. So I'll put one more 0 in there. Now notice that it's real time, so as I add a 0, right, this is everything over 20,000. This is everything over 200,000. But let's just do one more and say everything over 300,000. And there we go. So these are called conditional formatting, and it's very useful to just kind of get data to pop into an Excel form here. And while we're talking about formatting just a little bit, you probably all know this, but one of the things that makes a chart kind of visually appealing is rather than just having it like here on the right, perhaps I want to format this so that it has a nice obvious header column. So that's just a simple background color choice here. You can choose any of them. I'll choose like a medium dark blue there, and then you choose your text color. And I'm just going up here to the area where it shows your formatting text, and I'm going to choose white, and maybe I want to make it bold. So that's just a way to kind of make your formatting pop. Easy little way to create the lines is just highlight the area that you want to create, kind of lines and charts in, and you can go up to this little function here on the upper left and say I want all borders. Boom, nice. And so these are just some real basic formatting functions, but once you learn them, they're quick and easy to do. And I think you'll find that it just makes your charts more appealing. Awesome. Let's move on to another topic here. And we're kind of going from simple to more advanced as we go here. And then the two big examples at the end will be how to combine all this into some very useful charts and graphs and my decision-making tool. Let's go ahead and get into deduping. There's two basic concepts for deduping or detecting dupes. And one of them is to basically, first of all, let's start with the simplest one, and I'm going to create a couple more dupes here. By the way, this is a simple thing. I'm just going to copy and paste and I'm going to make a duplicate out of a couple of these like I've done here. I'm going to copy, I'm going to paste. And so now I've got two Robert De Niro's in there, as you can see. And for now, I'll just get rid of these, just hide them for a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I want to look for duplicate email addresses, because you might have two Jane Smiths or something literally that are two real separate people. So, but email address is good because it's a unique identifier. Even phone numbers can be shared, but email addresses are always personal. So if I wanted to find the duplicates and imagine this is 500 or something rows, this would be very difficult to do without what I'm going to show you here. So you highlight the column that you want to detect the duplicates on, and then you're going to go up here to conditional formatting, and you're going to say, I want to highlight, again, same thing, highlight cell rules, but you go over here down to the bottom and you say duplicate values. Okay, highlight the column you want, conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, and select duplicate values. And here's where I can select the color that I want to identify those by. So I've easily, out of, it could be hundreds or even thousands of rows of data, identified duplicates. And if you're doing something, maybe to import into an Excel program, into a CRM program or something, then you can use that to selectively delete the duplicates, for example. Very useful function. Also, I'll back up on that. Now, by the way, let's go ahead, and once I've got those selected, I'll show you another little useful tip on, I don't know, did you know you can actually filter and sort by color? So if I went like this, sort by color, all right, it puts those at the top. So if I had like 500 rows of data or something, it'll put all the duplicated rows on top. Super useful. All right. But I could also filter by color. So sort and filter are two different things. Sort by color is just putting the colored ones on the top or the bottom, however you like it. The filter by color is this other option, and I want to filter it down. So sorting just changes the order in which records appear, as you probably know. Filtering reduces the number of records by some criteria. In this case, the color, which, as we just determined, is also identifying the duplicates. So if I filter by that, it'll show me all of the records, and only those records, in this case, that are duplicates, because the highlighting had been applied to duplicates only. Pretty cool, huh? At least I think so. So those are just a few of the basic concepts of identifying duplicates. Another thing that you can do, and let's go ahead and get our other duplicates back in here. Another thing you could do is actually do some deduping. One of the kind of tricky things in Excel is finding what these little icons mean and such. You have to kind of hover over them. So I'm just going to show you. I've highlighted my email address column, and then I'm going to go up here, and there's just a little icon. It's not very intuitive. You see it right there. Or actually, if I mouse it, it's right here. This is the remove duplicates one. Now, when I click that, it's going to ask me if I want to continue with current or expand it, okay? If I click that expand, you can see what it did is it just found 4 values that were unique and removed them, okay? But the other option would be to say, I want to continue with the existing selection and just look at email addresses. Now it only deduped the lines that had duplicate email addresses. So 2 options for removing duplicates. To back up and kind of repeat that a little bit. Removing duplicates, you highlight the column you want to dedupe. You go up here to this little remove duplicates, and you choose expand or continue with current selection, and you get those 2 different results there. And going back to the highlighting was just color, just highlighting visually the duplicates in your database, so that then you can go in and take a look at which ones you might want to delete. So this one has this, that one's a nickname of the same person. Delete that one. That one doesn't have the last name in it. We'll delete that one. I knew that because the email address is the common data point there. All right. So that's some duplicate handling functionality. And let's see what else we've got going on here. Oh, combining data is a useful one. Pretty easy to do. In this case, you can see how some of these, on the left, I have first name column and last name column. But what if I wanted a column that had the first and last name combined, and we may call that full name? There's a simple little formula for that. And here's what it is. If you look up here in the formula bar, it's how it works is you put the equal sign. That always starts a formula right here. And in this case, the cell B5 that I want to merge with cell C5, and in between them you put an and, ampersand, open quote, space, close quote, ampersand, and the cell number that you want to combine, and that's how that works. Now the cool thing is if you do it once, we can use the drag and drop function to expand that formula all the way down a list. So let's just say I just did it for the first one here, and I'll remove my highlighting here for a moment, which by the way is something that's easy to do. Just I'm gonna clear the highlighting here for a second. A little extra tip there. So I'm gonna say in this case I don't want any fill, no color. All right, so go back to that little highlighting tip or formatting tip. But notice, so again, what I did is I have 2 columns, first name, last name, could be anything, city and state. And I want to create the formula. So it's right here again, equals cell 1, B5, ampersand, quote, space, quote, ampersand, cell 2. And once I put that in there, you just drag and drop, and it'll look at all of those and create, in this case, a full name column. Sweet, very useful. And again, if you wanted to, sometimes maybe you want the data, city, state, and zip all in one line because you're going to do some kind of mailing or something like that. Might be a very useful way to combine data. All right. Now we're going to get into another area, and it's going to basically help you do things like create forms. So I've got a little form I've created here. I'll show you a little bit about how this was all done. But we're going to zero in on 2 things in here. 3 things: formatting, how I got it to look like this, and we're going to look at creating drop-down lists, and we'll look at putting in some formulas. Let's start with the basic formatting. You know, in Excel, there's usually, by default, there's all these little lines in the background, little grid lines. And if you want to have a form that doesn't have those shown up in it, what you want to do is you want to create an area. You can select the entire sheet or just parts of it. And what you're going to do is you're going to go here, select the area, right click is the way I like to do it. And we're going to go in and say format cells. And the way to make it pure white so it doesn't have those grid lines, it's the pattern style in here and the fill. So I went, selected the area, right click, format cells, and I'm going to select pattern from the fill tab here, the pattern style. Now, if I selected this dot pattern, it would put the dots in all of them. But let's say I don't want to do that. I want to make it nice and white like I've got here. So I right click, format cells, go to the fill tab, and I want just the blank white one. And that's what looks nice in a form usually. Okay. Now you don't really have to worry about what's outside your print area. So I'll talk a little bit about how do you create a print area. To create a print area, which means when I create a PDF or print it out, you're going to first select the area that you want, like this, and then we're going to go up here into view and we'll select page layout. And this is where, so I went to view on the top and I selected page layout. And this is where I basically decide where my page breaks are and what it's going to look like as a page. What that results in, and I'll go back to normal view here, what that results in is when I go to print this, it's going to only print the section of that sheet that I have applied that condition to. And the reason page breaks are useful because you might have a long form that might expand into 2 pages, in which case it'll automatically paginate as the way you defined it. So that's a very useful, just kind of a formatting thing. You probably know that you can just drop any image into an Excel sheet and like a logo or something. That's just a picture file. You can insert pictures of other sorts. You go up to insert, and now it's called illustrations in 2016 Excel. You choose pictures and then where it's going to come from, stock images, online, or your own computer. It's called this device. So then you can go into pictures, and like I'll use one of my company logos here. This is just the selecting from my computer now, and it insert that logo here, okay? Now, if I wanted to put that, move it around, I just basically have inserted an image. So you can insert pictures, which are images, into an Excel sheet. It's useful for logos and other things. So I'll go through some of the basic things, like let's cover some of these date fields. You see here where it says quote date and valid through. So the formula I'll highlight here in, let's just make that kind of a yellow background so you can see where I'm at here. I've got quote date as a cell. And first of all, I did format it as a date field. So while I'm highlighted on that cell, you go up here to the middle where it says number, and there's all kinds of different options, and I want a date. I usually choose the short date field like that, whereas you could choose a longer date field and it adds the full written out day of the week, October 29th, etc. And like I said, I usually just choose the short date. That's right up here. So you want to if you're formatting a date field, you want to make sure you change the format. If you're creating a date field, make sure you're formatted as a date field. Now notice though that this one has a formula in it. If you look right here, right where I'm zeroing in there, whenever you put that equal sign in, it creates a formula. We're going to talk about that several times today. So the formula in this case is a very handy one. It just today, open and close parentheses. And whenever I put that formula in any cell, and I'll just copy it to another cell to show you that cell, and I need to color that black for you, it'll pick up today's date. And so what we did there is create the formula by just simply typing in what I was just showing you there. I'm going to go back to that. And it just says today. Equal sign, today, open and close parentheses. And tomorrow, that would say October 30th automatically. That's just one way to do it. But what that means is every time you open this form, the quote date, presuming you're going to be creating a quote that day, will be today's date, that day's date. Let's go down to the valid to, another very simple formula. But in dates, it's useful because you might have, say, a 20-day valid period for a quote or an estimate or something. Notice here I have date format. I'm also formatted in a date. And you can see where I'm at right now. And the equal sign starts the formula. And I just said D6, which is this cell above it, plus 20. What does it do? It adds 20 days and gives you that date. Pretty handy. All right. A little bit about linking cells to other sources while we're up here on top still. And that would be, say, the address, city, state, zip, name of the company, and so on. Could be something linked. So if you look down here where it says Wayne Smithers, I'm right here in the ship to. This might be coming from another worksheet or the same worksheet somewhere else in it. Notice though that the formula is D14. And by the way, if I double click on that cell, it'll show where it's coming from. In this case, it's pointing to the sold to name. But over here, it's pointing to that external source up here on the right. So it's picking up the name of the customer from another data source. Could be another Excel sheet, even a completely separate Excel file, by the way. And all I did to get there was, I'll delete that formula for a second. As I said, equal sign. Notice how that started to show an equal sign up here. And I just select that cell, super easy. And now it's always, if I put a different name in here, like Susan, up in the source file here, it's going to automatically put it in the form as Susan. And in this case, because this cell refers to that one, we'll also pick that up as the ship to. Pretty cool. All right, simple stuff, but very useful. So, you know, another formatting tip is merging cells together. So, you know, when you start with an Excel sheet, it's just going to have all these cells and they're not merged or anything. But maybe you want one that has a nice bar of color in it, and you want the word quotation or whatever centered in it. So the way you do that, first I will remove the formatting from this. So, and that is right click, format cells. I'll remove the formatting, in this case alignment, by going to alignment and unchecking the merge. Okay, so right now this is what you'd get if you just had the cells as individual cells. But let's make that one big bar, and so it's automatically centered, and I'll show you how to do that. If they're not merged, you right click, format cells, select alignment, and just check this box right here that says merge cells. Now it got centered because that's the way I had chosen to format that cell on the left to begin with. You see it up here, centered up vertically, right here, and centered horizontally. I could change it to left justify, right justify, top justify, and so on. I usually like this sort of a bar to be centered. Just a simple formatting tip. Whereas down here, these cells are not merged, and this one is justified left. This one is, as you can see from the formatting, that would be justified right. You can see what I'm doing right here. This one's justified center, and so on. So you basically want to get the visual ideas to what your form looks like, and then you apply these formatting rules and tips. Now we're getting to some of the good stuff here. Let's talk about creating these drop-down lists. Took me a while to catch on to this, but you know, you could have you could, of course, just type things into a form or copy paste them and stuff, but there's an easier way. And this is the ability to create a drop-down list. So notice that when I'm on this cell, automated TV channel surfer, there's a drop-down arrow, and I could change the values on that from the drop-down list, okay? Now what that's doing is it's actually pointing to the formatting that I've set up. Here's how that works. First, let me remove the formatting here. And to do that, I'm going to, let's do the remove formatting here. And that's in a obscure function called data validation, which you'd never find unless you knew this. So data validation, I just put, by the way, I put it as a shortcut here, but if you go to data, and you'll find data validation right in here. Maybe on another topic, I'll talk more about the quick access toolbar, but not today. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to remove that drop-down capability from this by going to data validation, and I'm going to say just select data validation, and I'm going to select clear all. So I get rid of my formatting there. Now it's just a regular cell, but here's how you create the drop-down list. First, you have to create your list. It's simple. You just put it in rows, product 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, what those products are. You could put pricing in there, which we can also do a drop-down on. And since it's a quote, that would be very useful. Now I'm going to select the cell that I want to apply this type of formatting. It's really a type of formatting. And we're going to go up here, and it's called in Excel data validation. We're going to click on that. Now there's two key things to remember here. First of all, you have to change it to a list view, not any value. You have to change this right here to a list. So I'm going to go back. I know this might be a little quick, so I'm going to go back. Here's where I'm at, right up in here, and I'm going to select data validation. And I'm in the settings area, and I'm changing this setting to list. Okay. Now, what would you do here? It's not intuitive at all. Well, what you do, once you've created your list over here on the right, you just click this little up arrow right here. And then you go over and you select the list that you want to create as the drop down. Okay, this is the magic. I hit enter, I click OK, and that would create the drop down list for what you're putting in there. Okay, that's how you create a drop down list. And so that is a useful function, so that it just eliminates a lot of copy paste or manual data entry. While we're talking about formulas like this, you might want to have, say, a very simple formula that multiplies the price times the quantity. And if you see where I'm at right here in the extended column, simple. Probably everyone knows this, but I'm going to cover it anyway. By the way, whenever you're in a formula and you double click, it'll show the cells that are related and the formula up above. But all I did to create that, if I didn't have it already, I'll delete it, is I put an equal sign in there. I selected the first cell, quantity, and I used my keyboard to put times, which is the asterisk symbol, and I select the second cell, and now that will always calculate this cell quantity times the price. Now, then I could just copy that formula down on all of these, and it will automatically do that for all the rows in the quote. Now, you're logically not going to have all these little notes and all these little notations and stuff in here, but that is those are some of the basic ideas on how you would create, say, a quote form. A couple other quick things on this, then we'll move along. One of them is you might have tables that you're referring to, like a sales tax table. I'll zoom out of this to show you, like when I'm in that sales tax formula, you notice up here where it says tax rate, right here where my cursor is. So that's an external table that can calculate tax rate. You can make it more complicated if you want, but you could just type in the tax rate or have a tax rate table that you're referring to. Again, it could be somewhere else in this cell file, anywhere. It even could be in a separate Excel document. That would be a good example of linking a cell that applies something like taxes. And then a very simple thing, which is to sum up the data. So in this case, the order subtotal plus the sales tax. See the formula equals equal sign sum and parentheses. Well, there's actually a very easy way to create that formula. And let's just say that I wanted that order total to be just the next thing. So where my cell is right now, there's a very useful formula. There's a very useful function in Excel. It's called auto sum. If I am in a cell and it'll look at the cells that are up above it and adjacent to it, or to the left of it automatically, and if I click that, it's going to put that formula in automatically for me. It's just a shortcut to do a sum, which is adding fields together. So in this case, add fields. You can select any fields that you want, and it'll create the total. All right, and the whole point here was to use some data and techniques in Excel, I'm a Profit guy, to create something like a printable form. Great. All righty then, so we keep moving. Hopefully we're adding some value to your day here. Let's go into creating some basic charts here. Charts are obviously a very useful thing. Now in here, the first thing, it's a little bit jumbled here. I got a lot of stuff going on, but I'll zero in on what I'm doing here. So first of all, you create a chart by having some data, obviously. In this case, I've got a very simple line. Remember how we expanded those dates too, by the way. I got a very simple row of months here. And then I've got like how many, in this case, opportunities were created. Opportunities were one. That's sort of a CRM thing. And then I have these conversion rates. So let's just do a very simple graph and I'll show you how it was done. So you notice I'm on this graph, and when I'm highlighted on it, it's actually showing me where that data is coming from. But let's just say I hadn't created that graph yet. So I'm going to delete that graph, and we'll create a very simple little graph here. Okay, graph is gone. So I'm just going to highlight the sections that I want in this chart, and I go up here to insert, and I'm going to choose some, there's some like recommended charts, but I'll just choose a line chart just for the fun of it here. And great, it automatically created my line chart. Now I can do some formatting on that by double clicking on the highlighting around it. And I can say, I want to make my border, I'm over here on the right now. I want to make my border a solid line, and I want to make it a little thicker. See how that's working? And I want to make the color a different color. Let's say it's red. Okay. So I just created a graph and I highlighted it to do some formatting on it. Now there's a few other things you can do in graphs that are very useful. One of them would be to add the values. They call it the chart elements, very common in a graph, like I've done in the one on the right. But this one has no values on the different months, for example. Up here, when you're in chart design, up on the far left, there's a button that says add chart element. And not very intuitive label, but it's a chart element. So we're going to put data labels on there. And let's just say we want them just above the data points. You can actually see them appearing as I mouse over these different things. I kind of like this sort of graph to have the data points above it. So those are how many records or opportunities were created or whatever you're tracking. Now let's format those a little. Let's say we want all of them bold. So we just select one. You can see it took the whole series and selected. Here we just go back up to the home ribbon, and I'll make them all bold. And I can also then make them different colors. See that? And different sizes. So I'm basically showing you how to format a chart that we've just created. Awesome. But let's say that we want to get a little fancier and we want to compare two things in the same chart. So right now, I'm going to show you again what I did. To create that first chart, I just selected that area right there. But by clicking on the border of that, it brings up what I've highlighted. Now watch this. I'm going to grab that little lower rectangle. There's a little dot on it. And you can see how it just added the second row into it. Pretty cool, huh? And then you can add legends and things like that. That is a very useful thing to add to start comparing data. So I've created another one like that here. And this gets me into some of the style designs. So when you first create a chart, it's going to be a pretty basic looking chart, and you can do formatting and such like we've shown you here. But I'm going to back up a couple here. There we go. But if you wanted to get fancier, you double click on that chart edge, and up above, it'll bring up your little sort of a menu of different chart types. And even without selecting them, you mouse over them and you can see how it will give you these different chart types. So there's one there. These are just predefined chart types, which you can then continue to format. Like maybe I want that to be a different color or something, right? So you can change things after you've created, selected one of these standard charts. Don't forget there's a little drop-down arrow that lets you see more options in here. Here's one that's kind of a gray background. These are some of the basic chart concepts, charting concepts. Hopefully you've picked up something from that. I'll show you another very useful one in charts, and then we'll move on into the next topic here to kind of wrap up. One of them is to just select a certain bar or element of the chart and make it a different color. Okay, so if right now I have selected just this one, and it's not intuitive, but the way you do that is you're going to go into the chart. I'll do it slowly. And you select one of the bars, but it'll actually highlight them all. So just click the one that you want. Now, if I highlighted them all and said I wanted to go up to shape fill, by the way, I could change all of them. But right now I'm just going to click again, and now I'm just going to select that one. So then I can select the color that I want. Let's make it orange. So I'm up here in color, right here, and I make it orange. So it stands out. Maybe you just want to make a call out on that. The shortcut is right here with the little bucket. The other one is in the format section. It's called shape fill. I'll show you that. So if I'm here and I go to format up on top, which is one of these, the far right ribbon right up here, you can do the same thing. It's called shape fill. Maybe I want to fill them all with green. Now maybe I want to make this one, again, double click it once, click it twice, and it's just, you can see, it's just highlighting that one, and I'll make this one brown. There we go. Useful little chart formatting functions, how to create and format your charts. All right, we're going to go a little bit more into charts, and then we'll wrap up with the decision-making tool, which is a lot of fun. So, these aren't very complicated, but they're probably a little advanced. One of the concepts here is how to create a chart with multiple elements and make it look good. So in this case, I've got a chart that's referring to a table over here, and it's sales revenue by sales rep. And in this case, I've got Wayne, Susan, and Bill. But you notice that this chart, when I'm highlighting it on right now, is selected Wayne and Susan. I can change this on the fly. I can just say, I just want Wayne. See what I did there with my cursor? That little right corner again, highlight the graph, the chart. You'll see what it's looking at. And then I can add Susan by dragging that down. I could add Bill by dragging it one more row down. That's a real useful function. Now, the cool part is you don't have to build this graph every time. If you want to expand it into another month, remember our drag and drop to expand columns? Well, you can actually just fill out your data in the next month or the next months, and watch what happens over here. I drag it over to the right so that I'm getting more months. I hit enter, and now that's going to show me clear out through July next year. Awesome. And do a couple of those. All right, so what I was just kind of getting to is the table itself always has to be created, but then you can on the fly make changes to it on how the data is displayed. Here's a useful one. It's the link, how to link a chart title to a cell. So this cell over here, it's called sales revenue by rep in my table, and I always want that to be linked to the chart title. So this is a simple thing, but notice up here there's that equal sign again. So the chart title actually allows you to create a formula to point it, say, to a different cell. This gets us to another little cool thing, which is anchoring it to a particular cell. But and I'll get to that in a moment. But I've just highlighted my title here, and notice that it says equal sign, apostrophe, advanced charts. Well, that's just because I pointed it to this cell right there, where it says sales revenue by rep. And that means that if I change this label over here on the right, the chart title will automatically change. Okay, I'll change the word sales rep to account rep, just as an example. And you'll notice when I do that, the chart title changes right there. That's the idea. Linking a chart title to a cell, which is very useful. And I showed you the expanding and shrinking selections there, so we covered that. Legends you can put different ways. This is a useful one though. It shows you who you're, somewhere by color, which is useful, of who you're looking at. And I'll add Bill back in here just to show you that again. And now Bill is in the legend down there. All right. So those are some of the useful things about just basic and a little bit more advanced chart creation techniques there. So let's, here's just another example of using a different style of a chart. The table on the right is showing me, or rather the same table that we're looking at is showing me the data in a different way. In this case, it is a bar chart. And it kind of depends on what you want to do with the data, how you want to display it. Like, think of it this way, that this is now organized by month the same way, but it has the bar charts because it's easy to visually say, oh, well, I can see Wayne is ahead this month, but in this month it's Susan, right? And again, we put the data labels on there by going up there to the add chart elements. Very nice. Okay, so those are some good chart functions. Now we're going to wrap up today's session by combining a few more of these tools and something that I created. I actually got this idea. I was at a seminar so long ago that it was a person used a flip chart, believe it or not. And I got this idea, then I've kind of refined it and put it in Excel. The idea is to create a decision-making tool. So we're going to use some of these techniques to do that with. And I don't mind if you recreate this for that matter. I say copyright because I did kind of put this all together. But I'm just sharing it with you all. Hopefully you can get some value out of this. So notice I've used a lot of the techniques I've taught you on formatting and just creating a nice looking chart, graph, charts here, and so on. But I wanted to talk specifically about combining factors together and what I would call scores or ratings to give you some sort of outcome that can help you decide things like, it's complicated to think through in your mind, like, okay, I've got 5 or 6 products I might want to launch or work on. Then what are the criteria that I want to think about? So you have to define this. If it were a new product launch, it might be potential total revenue or potential profit that you can make on it, or how long it would take to get to market. Those are 3 great examples if you're doing a product. And you have to give it some context here. So the ratings below are based on 5 being the most revenue. In other words, that product would have the most potential, like this weather forecasting color globe down here. Maybe I'll come up with some of these products. It might be cool. They're just imaginary products, of course, to some extent. But anyway, so think of it as, 5 is the best, the most revenue. 5 is the most profit. 5 is the shortest to market. You don't want like a scale of 1 to 20. It's just too much. So I like this in the decision-making criteria, just 1 to 5. And then you're going to rate them all 1 to 5 in each of these columns. You do have to manually plug. Notice there's no formulas in here. If you look up on top, these are just, I entered that. I said, you know what? My weather forecasting color globe is going to have the highest revenue potential, but my exploding cigar has the lowest revenue potential. All right, and then you're going to say, but look at this. On the most profit, my exploding cigar has one of the highest profit potentials. Which one should I do? Well, we're going to get to that, right? And so you do this for each of the, in this case, products or decisions you're trying to make, the options in your decision tree. And then we're going to look at shortest to market in product development and sales marketing. That's always an important thing. Well, my exploding cigar is very short to market. Interesting. Whereas my automated channel surfer is very long to market, a lot of technology, a lot of development work or something. And then we have to make sense out of all this. And one of the ways to do that is by deciding which one of these decision-making criteria, revenue, profit, or time to market, is the most or least important. Rarely are they all the same. So I simplified that even further by just saying 1, 2, or 3. And again, if you get too many criteria, it just gets confusing. I suggest picking out 3 criteria that you're going to give a weighting to on a scale of 1 to 3. So we're going to give revenue a middle 2 out of 3 weighting factor, important but not the most important. Profit, the most important factor, and time to market, the least important, because really at the end of the day, in our business, we're trying to generate profits. All right, of course. But it might be different for you. Maybe you're totally revenue driven. If you get profits, that's a bonus. But anyway, so you can see that I've given the highest weighting to profit, the second most highest to revenue, the third to time to market. Now, when I plug these in, you'll see that a score starts appearing over here on the right. Now, here's a little formula bit for you here. How did that happen? Well, I used a combination of summing and multiplying things together in these formulas up here. But here's where I wanted to show you a little how to anchor something to a cell. So what that means is you're going to, on any one of these rows, you want to have the cell, the weighting factor anchored so that it always points to that. And that way I can copy this whole formula down and it automatically kind of points to the right cell, leaving the top ones anchored to each formula. And you can see how that's done, like on the weighting factor cell C6 right here, that I just put a $ before and after the C in that cell. That's all there is to it. And then when I copy this down, they're all going to be anchored to that same set of cells there. Might be worth looking into because it sure saves a lot of time manually creating a formula for every row. Awesome little trick. Now what I've done is I've created a matrix so that I can change things on the fly. Maybe the committee meets again and says, you know what, we found out, we did a market survey and the 12-volt steering wheel heater has the most revenue potential. And it turns out the adhesive speakers aren't looking so good. Look how it changed the ratings on all of these. Now the 12-volt steering wheel heater is the biggest. Now, one of the things you can do with data in Excel is sort largest to smallest or smallest to largest, right? So that's what I've done there. Simple that way. If I wanted to rank these, let's do one of those little those pull downs for a ranking here. I put in 1 and 2 and then I just highlight them. This is something we just learned. And now this is, I'm calling my ranking, I'm just adding a little something we learned in there, 2 or 3 things. Rank, I'll call it. Let's make it the same formatting as that using Format Painter. All right, there we go. And let's make that the same. I'm using Format Painter right now. If I want to apply the same format to other cells, I select the cells, hit that little paintbrush, and drag it over those cells. Now I've just created my list. Voila. We better go after the 12 volts. Let's say we're going to do 3 products. What are we going to do? The top 3 highest scores based on all of our criteria, right? Pretty cool. We're going to do these 3. Why? Because they're the top 3 in rank, and my exploding cigar and automated TV channel surfer are about the same. But they're my top 3. That's what we're going to develop. Pretty awesome. One more thing to wrap up as we enter the top of the hour here. And that is, you can apply this to kind of any decision-making factors. Just as by way of example, someone's trying to make a career choice. Be a stay-at-home parent, get a job in aerospace, construction, or computer science, or be an artist. My criteria are most income, most satisfaction, most difficult. And in my case, in this example here, I'm going to say job satisfaction is my most important weighting. I don't care how hard it is to achieve. And my income potential is the least. But you know what? I can change that. Income potential is the highest. Job satisfaction I don't care about. And difficulty to achieve is medium. And I've done the same thing. Simple decision-making criteria, or a little tool that you can use. If you want to contact me about that, feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'm easy to reach. You can use my business number here. You can contact me through my Avidian address or my Outlook address. I'll post that for just a moment. And I really want to thank you all for joining today's webinar. You can find these videos on YouTube. Just search for my name and Excel tips or Outlook tips. Thank you all and have a wonderful day.